This video is sponsored by War Thunder. The Wii U loved sequels. I'd say that it's probably the defining characteristic of the generation. I mean, the console itself was a sequel, and don't get me wrong, there are some incredible games in the Wii U's library, but a lot of those heavy hitters were building on already established ideas. Like, for example, every console would get its own Mario Kart, but usually each new Mario Kart tried to do its own thing. Double Dash with the two racer mechanic, Wii with the bike and motion controls, you get it. But the Wii U's big Mario Kart title was Mario Kart 8. A phenomenal game, but its identity is pretty clearly tied to Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS, expanding on the gliding and underwater mechanics of that game and adding anti-gravity on top. You see this all over the place. Super Smash Bros. Brawl with its own unique subtitle turns into Super Smash Bros. 4. Kirby Canvas Curse into Kirby Rainbow Curse. Star Fox Zero was a reimagining of Star Fox 64. Even an original title like Yoshi's Woolly World ends up being a spiritual successor to Kirby's Epic Yarn, while games like Mario Party 10 and Paper Mario Color Splash were so obsessed with doubling down on a sequel that they don't even stop to consider if the game they were making a sequel for even deserved one in the first place. This isn't to say that the Wii U was devoid of new ideas. The launch title Nintendo Land is genuinely one of the most interesting party minigame collections Nintendo has ever made. Splatoon saw its first debut on this console, and that series has become wildly successful. Super Mario Maker, even though it's based on older Mario platformers, gave us some of the freshest and most creative 2D Mario experiences in an era where those were desperately needed. But I think you get the picture that this generation was broadly built on refining old ideas rather than experimenting with new ones. I mean, it's almost perfect irony that Breath of the Wild, the brand new, bold, and ambitious Zelda title that was being teased for the entirety of the Wii U's lifespan, ended up being held over for the next console. But I think there is one game on the Wii U that stands out, not only as its own fresh and original idea, but it has something that I think the generally more experimental Switch era has been missing. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is a Mario game where you can't jump, and while YouTube challenge runners might make that seem not that weird, it's pretty weird. I mean, Mario is the jump man. A lot of the appeal of your standard Mario experience is platforming, acrobatic maneuvers, and just hearing Mario hit some funny voice lines as you pull off cool jumps. A Mario game without jumping is like a Call of Duty game without guns. It strips the franchise of what makes it primarily appealing to its audience in the first place. But it works. Now, Treasure Tracker might be Captain Toad's first game, but it was not his first appearance. He showed up in Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 as a little side character. He would help you out and give you stars sometimes, but his first playable appearance was in Super Mario 3D World. This is a Yip Yap Yahoo 3D Mario game, but there were these little bonus levels that would appear in every other world where you got to play as Captain Toad. In these levels, you are tasked with collecting 5 green stars with the twist that Captain Toad cannot jump because his backpack is too heavy. What is in his backpack that makes it that heavy? I don't know. Does he ever use anything in his backpack? No. Why doesn't he just drop it and then grab it after getting the star? No comment. These are the levels that would go on to inspire the full release of Treasure Tracker. It was a really novel little side mode that left a strong impression at the time. Before Treasure Tracker was even announced, I remember people wanting the team to pursue a full game out of this concept. But clearly the 3D Mario team liked this little guy. Treasure Tracker would release about 1 year after 3D World, and it was noticeably pretty short and cheaper than most Nintendo releases at the time. My playthrough gathering footage for this video took about 4 to 5 hours to see pretty much everything, not going for 100%, and the game retailed at a reduced $40 price point. Treasure Tracker added a ton to the core gameplay introduced in the 3D World levels. You had these little sprouts you could pluck as a reference to Super Mario Bros. 2, and functionally replacing question blocks because Lil Bro can't reach those. They added power-ups and items items like the double cherry, turnips, and the super pickaxe. The levels got a lot larger and more complex, implementing tons of mechanics like the touchstones, seesaws, and even some different gameplay styles with these first-person minecart and cannon levels. The controls on these minecart levels are just really awkward. It almost makes me want to hop into the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, War Thunder, the sponsor of today's video. War Thunder is a free-to-play multi-platform vehicle PvP game available on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and mobile devices. Look at Captain Toad stuck shooting these puny turnips on rails. I'm falling asleep here just talking about it. But then there's War Thunder with realistic graphics and audio for over 2,500 incredibly detailed vehicles. I'm talking tanks, planes, helicopters, ships of 10 major nations, all ranging from the 1920s to the modern day. I personally prefer the air combat. The controls are incredibly intuitive and make performing advanced maneuvers a breeze, even with just a standard keyboard and mouse. While these vehicles and machines are complex and detailed, your own machine doesn't have to be. War Thunder runs on the heavily optimized Dagor engine, which means that even lower-end PCs can enjoy the game lag-free with impressive visuals and high frame rates. There's no wonder there's over 95 million players all engaging with War Thunder's unmatched wealth of high-quality content. And best of all, new players and players who haven't logged in for 6 months on PC and console can use my links in the pinned comment or description to get access to a massive bonus pack with multiple premium vehicles, 100,000 silver lions, 7 days of premium account, and the Eagle of Valor vehicle decoration. Captain Toad wishes that he could track treasure this good. Anyways, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is a really short game, but I'd also say it's rather dense. The game is made up of 3 main episodes and 1 bonus episode. The first episode is Captain Toad setting off to rescue Captain Toadette from the clutches of Wingo. I don't really know what his deal is. The only motivation I see on the wiki is that he has a penchant for stealing treasure from others. So like, I guess it isn't enough for him to take this star laying out there in the open. He has to wait for someone else to claim it and then steal it from them? What an asshole. I do like that the antagonist in the game where you're the guy who can't jump is a guy who can fly. Like, how dumb do you have to be to get owned by Captain Toad? Just fly away? Like, leave? Episode 1 feels like a bit of a tutorial almost. The levels here are on the simpler and easier side and seem to mostly serve as a way to introduce the mechanics. One thing I really like about this game is that because you can't jump, they can just like spawn you right next to the star. There's so many levels where if you could just jump 1 time, you could skip everything, but Toad has to find alternative solutions. I think Shy Guy Heights is a great introduction to how combat works in this game. Now, pop quiz. You're Super Mario and you are tasked with dispatching a very menacing Goomba. What do you do? Yeah, okay, that's enough, man. Captain Toad has way less options. You can't jump on them, and you don't have any offensive moves or power-ups. This means that combat as Captain Toad is much more about evasion, stealth, and kiting. It's honestly a really neat shift in perspective because normal Mario enemies are so unthreatening, and even a simple Shy Guy here feels like a Scooby-Doo chase. In Shy Guy Heights, you can choose to just try and book it past everything, or you can try luring Shy Guys beneath a ledge that you can drop from, or as the secret task encourages, you can play this level like a stealth mission. Enemy encounters in this game feel a lot more thoughtful because you can't just jump on them, or over them, or snipe them. Every enemy feels like a purposeful part of the level that you have to engage with. I think one of the weakest aspects in almost every Mario platformer is the boss fights. They're rarely difficult and often rely jump on guy, wait around while they're invincible, jump on guy again. Some of the 3D games have some more thematically interesting bosses like the Odyssey Dragon, but I think even with those, most of the time it's hit the guy, wait around, hit the guy. And this isn't something I fault these games for. The appeal is yip yap yahoos. I want a platform, I want to hit cool jumps. Locking me in a circular arena where I can't do that is probably not going to be very fun. That said, I really enjoy how Treasure Tracker approaches the Dragadon fights. Because Captain Toad can't jump on the guy, then wait, then jump on the guy. These fights are more more of chase sequences. Most of these fights are about timing and finding cover, but the downtime feels less like, alright, this guy is invincible, let's just jump around aimlessly, and more of planning out your next route. I also just enjoy that to Captain Toad, this isn't even like a boss fight. Like, he's still only here to get the power star, he just happens to take out the giant dragon in the most unintentional Looney Tunes way possible. What was Bro's plan if this pillar didn't fall? Water levels are actually kind of cool in this game because it's less about how the water hinders your movement, since you basically move the exact same underwater, and more about how the water affects the environment, diving from the surface to areas that were inaccessible from the seafloor, and making objects on the seafloor float to the surface to create new paths. I love Blizzard on the Star Express. Having different puzzles and obstacles on each train car is just super fun, and you also get to... Yeah, good video game. Episode 1 ends with a fight against Wingo, which climbing his tower is pretty cool because Wingo gets to affect the wind. Actually fighting Wingo is kind of one of those waiting around type bosses. It is interesting that you're able to skip cycles here. I feel like most Mario bosses would just destroy the turnips after every hit, but other than that, kind of a boring fight. And I don't know how they let this slide. Now, episode 2 starts out with bisexual lighting, so you know what that means. Yeah, it's the Toadette episode, that's my freaking goat. Episode 2 is where the levels feel like they start to get a lot bigger and more complex. Even levels that look small start to get a lot denser. Like Stumper Sneak Around has you timing your movements around Stumpers, then looping back on top of them, exploring the underground to come back up and then drop back down. It feels like they're able to cram so much into these small little dioramas. Drift Along Canyon is kind of an auto-scroller, but not being able to jump makes not taking damage from the bullet bills here feel a lot more active. Like, again, there's so many cool obstacles you can put in this game that Mario would just completely ignore. There's another Dragadon fight here, and I think it's another banger. This time, not only do you have to plan your routing, but you also have to allocate enough time to rotate the wheels to get your cover in place. It's not a Silk Song boss or anything, but by Mario standards, I find these really enjoyable. The level Windup stairs isn't super notable, but to be honest, it just kind of scratches my brain the right way. The theming of the whole stage being this mechanical wind-up device moving between two states is super cute and a super cohesive gimmick. It makes traversing the level really charming. And then episode 2 ends off with an enemy rush, which is kind of like a fun minigame-like encounters, but honestly a bit of an anticlimactic ending. And I'll say it, let Toadette get back shots. Why is it every time Captain Toad rescues Toadette, she gets stuck in the ground, but the one time Toadette rescues Toad, he's just like standing there? Fucked up. Dystopian even. Like and subscribe if you agree. Leave a comment how outraged you are about the lack of Toadette back. Episode 2 ends with Captain Toad getting blown off the tower while Toadette gets carried away by Wingo again. And this guy Wingo is so petty. Bro knocks Toad off the tower, takes Toadette, then follows him down into the depths of a cave, waits for him to wake up just so he can take 1 star from him. Like, no real motivation here, just a petty asshole, man. This episode feels like they really let loose with a lot of fun ideas. You have one with the beat blocks from 3D World. These feel like they were really built with jumping in mind, so having to approach them as more of like timing your sprint to the next safe area was a cool way to recontextualize them. Multivator Mayhem is all about slowly building up your army of toads, with each one obtained allowing you to access more. A final Dragadon fight which introduces touchstones to the mix. I don't remember how this fight felt on Wii U, but on Switch I found myself kind of struggling to move Toad with the left stick, the camera with the right stick, and my little cursor by tilting the controller all at the same time. I thought it was a good kind of overwhelming though. I liked the sense of urgency it created trying to juggle all of these things. Toadette gets this cool pinball level where you get to slide down the machine and go inside of it. Toad gets this epic retro reference level where you get to climb a Donkey Kong arcade machine, go inside of it for secrets. No Sleep at Magic Koopa Keep is this really neat level where you're climbing this tower, unlocking doors, traversing obstacles, but the whole time there's a Magic Koopa just out of reach sniping you with magic. It makes for this really cool consistent obstacle that you need to keep track of while doing everything else. And again, Mario would just kill this guy. Then the final Wingo level is kind of neat again, but the fight itself is basically the same. The only difference is he leaves some electric fields on the ground this time. Beating episode 3 will roll credits and end with Captain Toad arriving in the Sand Kingdom from from Super Mario Odyssey. I found this super interesting because I knew there was Odyssey content in the Switch version. I mean, it's on the box art, but I didn't realize that it was replacing the 3D world content from the Wii U version. In the Wii U version, Captain Toad ends the credits chasing a green star, and then it plays the opening to Super Mario 3D World, showing Captain Toad following the Mario cast into the clear pipe, which if you want to change and retcon the post-credits scene to reflect the newer game, sure, whatever. But they also just removed all of the Super Mario 3D World bonus stages from the game. Granted, these levels were much less involved than the Odyssey stages they made. These Odyssey levels are super cool and really intricate, and the 3D World stages were basically stages ripped straight from 3D World with accessibility ramps pasted in everywhere. But it also seems weird that the definitive port of this game just does not have some of the original content. I don't know, not a huge deal, but a weird deal. The rest of the bonus is some cute little gimmick remixes of levels. You have the Toad Brigade levels where you have to find each member of the Toad Brigade and then escort them to the end. There's the Mummy levels, which are like Cosmic Mario levels with a mummy toad following your exact movements. But yeah, that's the game. Why am I talking about it? I think one thing that I was pretty consistently complimenting throughout this game was how Captain Toad's limitations make for some really unique interactions with existing Mario mechanics. The amount of times you can imagine how easily Mario could dispatch a Captain Toad level is cool to me, because this was made in the same engine as Super Mario 3D World. The devs essentially took the engine, and with just one restriction of not being able to jump, were able to craft an entirely new experience. I mean, this game came out like 1 year after 3D World, and it's cool that this game didn't need insane dev time and a whole new engine to provide such a unique experience. I love how this game continuously pushes up against its restrictions in new and interesting ways. I love how enemy interactions feel so different, even if they're the same enemies I was fighting in 3D World. I love how what can seem like the simplest level can actually prove to be so much deeper. I love how efficient this game is. I love that it reuses assets. I love that it reuses mechanics. I love that it doesn't overstay its welcome. I love that it has a consistent frame rate. I love how much polish could be crammed into these compact levels. And I love that it retailed for $40. Modern Nintendo has been under a lot of criticism recently, with games going up in price on the Switch 2, lots of DLCs and paid upgrades, $50 amiibo, and while I do think some of these criticisms are being made in bad faith, especially considering the dumpster fire the rest of the gaming industry is right now, I think the general sentiment that Nintendo has gotten greedier is hard to argue. Like, this amiibo figure of a Mario render from an 18-year-old video game is the same price as Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. Like, I just spent this whole video praising this video game that Nintendo values as much as the 18-year-old Mario render figure. I wish Nintendo developers were able to repurpose their old engines in cool ways to make new experiences, but when you look at the Switch and Switch 2 eras, anything like this has to be packed into a larger release. There's Bowser's Fury, which was packed into a $60 port of a Wii U game, with no option to purchase separately. Seriously, I would love to buy this separately because I already 100%ed 3D World on Wii U and don't care to play it again or pay $60 just for Bowser's Fury. The Emerald Rush mode from Donkey Kong Bonanza, but that's a $20 DLC for a $70 game. Olimar's Shipwreck Tale from Pikmin 4 was a really cool little post-game bonus, but imagine what they could have done if they had a little more time to make a small full project out of it. No, sorry. Actually, they're immediately getting thrown back into the decade-long Pikmin development time chamber. I miss when Nintendo actually prioritized smaller experiences. Like, remember when they used to make eShop games like Pushmo and Snipperclips? Where did those go? I'm not counting Drag X Drive. That game looks bad. Switch Nintendo has this general tendency to charge more for less. Incomplete Mario sports game with less content than its predecessor from 15 years ago on the Wii? Yeah, let's charge $60 for that one. Can't wait for $70 tennis. You know, when they released Splatoon on the Wii U, it was only $40, and I mean, it made sense, a new IP. Online multiplayer and shooters weren't really Nintendo's strong suit, but then on Switch, we got another new online multiplayer IP with less content, less depth, less to do. ARMS was $60. Scratch that, ARMS is still $60 in 2025. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze retailed for $50 in 2014. They ported it 4 years later for $60 $60, adding basically nothing but a new easy mode, and that 7-year-old port of an 11-year-old game is still $60 to this day. It feels like as the Switch era has progressed, there hasn't been room for small stuff anymore. Every new first-party Nintendo game has to be this big AAA blockbuster. Even games that have traditionally been shorter and simpler find themselves becoming larger and more complex. Even games that are not even close to being AAA blockbusters are marketed and priced as if they are. And whenever we do get small stuff, it's usually online multiplayer oriented with no dev support and the servers die out in weeks. I have found myself thinking about Captain Toad Treasure Tracker often throughout the Switch era, not because it's some beautiful, perfect 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Kind of the opposite, actually. It's imperfect. It's a little too easy most of the time. It took me 4 to 5 hours to beat it. It reuses assets. The OST is almost entirely comprised of remixes. The Switch version loves covering your screen with UI elements. It's a little slow at times. Tutorials pop up to tell you how to move the camera even when you're playing the post game. No, I think about Captain Toad a lot because we will never get anything like it again. I want smaller games that are cheaper to develop, cheaper to buy, with new ideas and old assets, and I'm not joking. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is a game that feels out of place on both console generations it was released on. In an era full of sequels and playing it safe, especially for Mario, it tried something new that contradicted the franchise's main appeal. And in an era full of big games, long dev cycles, and lots of overcharging, it still maintained its short length and $40 price tag. By all means, this game is an anomaly for Nintendo, and I just really wish that, from time to time, they would take a page out of Captain Toad's book. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring the video. You can check out the game for free on PC, console, or mobile. New players and players who haven't logged in for at least 6 months on PC and console can use my link below to get the bonus pack for a limited time. Thanks to you all as well for watching the video. I just got back from a big trip, which was a really nice reset after the Mario Party grind, but now I'm ready to get back to content. Leave a like, subscribe, let me know how you feel about Captain Toad, and drop some hype points. Yeah, I still don't know what they do, but I love engagement. Big thanks to my patrons and members, in particular Alpine Skyline, for being a high tier patron. If you want early access to videos and some behind the scenes stuff, check out the Patreon.